Greetings, heathens and heretics, and welcome to another In the Abyss album review with me and the drummist, as per usual, as it seems these days. How are you, sir?
Mm,
You good?
I'm good. Yeah, yeah. No complaints here.
Well, no one's going to fucking listen anyway.
Oh, in that case, I'll have a moan then. Well, for starters, no, I won't.
who said that?
Yeah.
What are we talking about today?
We're going to
Talk
talk
about.
about Sepultura today.
Right.
Yeah, or Sepultura, as I used to call them when I was.
Oh, yeah, no, I went through that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Have you
did
heard
all
that
that in the
band
90s.
Sepultura?
Yeah.
Um,
But
yeah, but
I
they.
mean, this is a long way from that Sepultura, that's for sure.
Oh, bloody hell! I mean, they've 42 years
Yeah.
career.
Yeah,
Sepultura.
and what's mad is that Derek Green's been in the band longer than Max Cavalera was. So
Yeah, yeah.
it's look, that discussion is pointless. There's no
I mean,
point
I
in
was going to say,
going
let's not
over that.
go there. I
No, no,
think,
no, complete
yeah,
waste of time. But
people pick their teams. I think.
yeah, exactly. But look, this is the Clouds of Unknowing EP.
Right.
So it's like a swan song EP, I guess, isn't it? To sort of finish off their career because is it pretty much this year it all comes
I
to an
think
end, I
so.
think,
This is
isn't it?
when it
Yeah.
all winds down to a halt. So they're
Yeah.
doing a world tour. I think their last European date is Dublin
Yeah.
later in the year. Um, and and then I think they're off back to America and kind of beyond. And
Final
that's
shows in
it.
Brazil, isn't it?
Yes.
Which makes
Yeah.
sense. Yeah.
Well, of course. Yeah.
But look, let's talk about this EP purely from the music point of view for the minute.
Mm,
It's an odd one, isn't it? Because if you were to take this EP back to 1992 and play it to a Sepultura fan and go, "This is what Sepultura are going to sound like in the future," you
yeah.
probably get your head kicked in
Yeah.
because it's
I think, yeah. Yeah. It's very different. I mean, when you put it like that, um, what they have turned into. Now, full disclosure, I'm a fan of both eras, and I've said this often on the podcast. Certainly, Quadra, the full album that came before this, which is going back to what 2020 now, I
yeah, it was
think, or
about that. Yeah, yeah,
around about
yeah.
then, somewhere around then. I'll go I'll go on record as saying I think that's an absolute metal
It's
masterpiece.
a good album. It's a great album. To be
I
fair
think it's
to
an
you. Yeah.
incredible metal album. But of course. Chaos AD, Arise, those records are like in my DNA
Mm.
as a a young metal fan, just getting to know the scene and getting to know everything about it. Um, those were the records that really hit me, So
Yeah.
I've got a lot of positives to say about all eras of Sepultura, which brings us to the newest four track, The Cloud of Unknowing.
Mm. Even the title in itself is
Hmm.
a bit of an odd one. I mean, the album opener, I mean, it starts off sort of quite sort of relatively straightforward latter day Sepultura kind of bit sort of
Yeah, yeah,
thrashy and whatnot.
they pile in there, but they throw you a curveball
Yeah,
very early on.
completely, because these strings just come out of nowhere. Look,
Yeah.
Sepultura aren't stranger to throwing in some strings into their music, but this
Mm.
does come out a little bit of out of left field.
Well, it's this kind of this orchestral flourish just comes in, and it's very early on in the track, which, is a very straight ahead, kind of quite hardcore
Mm.
sounding, pile driver of a track. Um, and then we get this sudden flourish, on the orchestra, and then I think at this point it's worth mentioning Grayson, the new drummer. Well, not, I mean, he's not new anymore, but obviously Eloy Casagrande left to join Slipknot, and Grayson New Krugman came in to replace him. And I think a lot of this EP is about, for anyone that doesn't get to see them live on this final tour, I guess there's an element of them showcasing what they
Yeah.
sound like with Grayson on drums. But um, as a drummer, his background is in he's got a lot of jazz chops, right? And we've talked on this podcast before about how important jazz is to metal, and anyone that wants to shout that down, go and listen to Bill Ward, go and listen to John Bonham, you know, go and think about the fact that Tony Iommi's biggest influence is Django Reinhardt, right?
And then
It's
sit on the
important.
stairs and think about what you've done.
Yeah, and I'm wagging my finger as I say it.
Quite a pen on
Um,
you.
But on this orchestral moment comes in, and then Grayson kind of does this. It's like big band jazz
Mm.
playing, which is I find quite interesting because that's a gear that Eloy didn't have. Eloy's a phenomenal player, but I don't know what his jazz chops are like. So then Grayson comes in with this kind of drum roll that's just like, where is this going? Before they then kind of find their
Uranus.
Sepulturiness again,
Mm.
and they just take it off. But it's a very curious interlude in this track, and the EP as a whole is full of little surprises like that. There's a few moments that just kind of like, whoa,
Yeah, I mean, the second track, it's a ballad.
it's a ballad with a
Like, it's
big,
a proper fucking ballad.
yeah, with a huge like blues solo.
Yeah.
Andreas Kisser just kind of, just lets fly with something that's really quite soulful and bluesy.
You know
Um,
it's Andres Kisser though. He's still got his trademark,
yes, yeah,
flow, isn't it? It's
yeah,
actually my favorite song on the EP,
right, right,
weirdly. I think it because it's a complete departure, but it doesn't feel like it's sort of thrown together. It feels like a genuine, you know, a genuine shift. It's a weird time to do it right at the
yeah.
end of their life as a band, but I do actually quite like it. I think it works
No,
quite well.
it's a great track, but it kind of just talking about it reminds me of the point you made at the beginning, where it's if you compare that to
Mm.
the band that put out Schizophrenia,
Yeah.
you know, um,
I think
it's
Derek Green's clean vocals on this sound top draw. I think it sounds
yeah,
great.
yeah, and I think he did a lot more of that in the sort of later stages of
Yeah,
Sepultura's career. But yeah, I do. It's a great arrangement. Again, just to go back to Andreas Kisser, I think he's one of the most underrated guitarists
yeah,
in metal.
yeah.
I think he's a phenomenal player. I'm sure I've said that on this podcast before, but there are a lot of moments in these four tracks where I just think about what a great musician he is.
I think the one of the key points for that is obviously when Sepultura split with Max, it goes down to a single guitar band,
Right.
and Andres Kisser has carried that since.
Yeah.
And you watch Sepultura live, and there's nothing missing.
Not at all.
He's such a presence as a guitar player that
Yeah.
yeah, he's essentially carried the band for that, for that reason. And yeah, he's a great guitar player, he really is.
I mean, everything he does, he's got style,
Yeah,
he's got technical chops, but he's got really good taste, and he can, he'll play for the song definitely, but always with this kind of virtuoso touch. It's
yeah.
just like, it'd be interesting once Sepultura is put to bed. I'd love to see what he does next,
Mm.
because I think he's probably got something really interesting up his sleeve. What that's going to be. I mean, I haven't seen any clues anywhere as to
No,
where
no. I mean, I guess it depends what they want to do with themselves, isn't it? I mean, they're obviously getting to an age where they're not going to be wanting to tour and do all of that. But their backgrounds, I mean, obviously Derek Green came from a hardcore background, so it's whether he goes back into that world and carries on with that, or what, I don't know. But it's just it's an odd ending to the band for me. Like this EP as well, it sits a little bit strange, and I don't
yeah,
quite know what the point is.
yeah. Well, I mean, I think two things come to mind. One, as I said, I think it's just showcase Grayson. But there's something about it that feels a little bit like a clearing out of the cupboards.
Yeah,
That perhaps these are the last few songs that were developed to a point where they could release them. And that's great on one hand because I think it's more music, it's more
yeah,
Sepultura, and there is a lot to enjoy. That comes with a but, um, and I think there's something a little bit underdeveloped about these tracks.
mm.
I don't think across any of them there's a slam dunk banger that's
No,
just like,
no, there
you
isn't.
know,
No,
like when they put the first single out, the place, I was quite underwhelmed by that as a standalone single. It's grown on me, and it sits in a similar vein to Beyond the Dream. Um, it picks up the pace in the second half. Got a
yeah,
great riff in it. Actually, the one of the things I thought the guitar tone he's using is very reminiscent of Iommi's on 13. So there's bits of this that make me think of the Sabbath 13 album, just sonically, just the
Yeah.
sounds. Um, but yeah, so I think it just feels a little bit like let's clear out the cupboards and put out the last that we have.
It's a funny one because there's clearly there's a depth to the songwriting here. I mean, there's a quote from Derek Green in the press release, and it
Hmm,
says the core idea was inspired by a book by Madison Smart Bell about the slave rebellion in 1780s Haiti. On a
right,
broader level, it speaks to what's happening in society today, how much can be changed when we come together beyond race, religion, and politics. It's also about the changes we can make within ourselves. So there's
right.
this you hear a quote like that, and it's like this doesn't feel like it's just been thrown together. There's thought behind it, but I can't quite understand
Right.
what
I
that
mean,
is. Where this sits in Sepultura's catalog.
yeah, I mean, interestingly, for me, the lyrics and the kind of lyrical content is always the last thing to kind of connect with me. I
Yeah,
often find that that's the thing I will come further down the line.
yeah,
So everything, I'm sure everything you've just kind of talked about there is there, in the words. My experience of it so far has just been purely on a kind of, you know, how the songs hit. And yeah, it's a bit um I guess I'm left with a feeling of if only they'd just if only there was more, if only Sepultura could just carry on, is what I'm saying. I'd rather hear these songs further down the line when they were worked into an album,
yeah, yeah,
and maybe the concept is stretched out more over the course of sort of 12 or more songs, or an album length. So we're kind of left with this. It's a bit of a white elephant, and like I want to talk about Sacred Books, which is the third track,
mm,
because probably the bizarrest moment across the whole album is they drop a piano solo,
yeah.
and it's like a classical piano solo, where a guitar solo should be.
It's only a 3 minute track as well.
Yeah,
There's all this
yeah.
going on in the space of three
So
minutes.
yeah, it just kind of, it's not shit. Like it works, but it's so odd and it's so interesting that there's a part of me that is like, where would they have taken this?
Mm,
And the reason I'll link that comment back to what you said about if you took this album and played it to, the old Sepultura. I think something that Sepultura have had, which perhaps um, doesn't get thought about when we're talking about the kind of this new era of Sepultura, is they've always been a band that have experimented.
yeah,
That
yeah,
whole, like, think about Roots and what that was. That was an experiment where they took heavy metal music, and they paired it together with, this tribal music,
mm,
which was, you know, it wasn't part of the metal scene. They brought that in. So really, that concept and that idea is exactly what they're doing now with,
yeah,
bringing big band jazz in, bringing piano solos in, bringing in all the, as a band, they've always done that. They've always
yeah.
brought
That's
in
fair.
different ideas. It's changed and evolved so much, but that concept about what they do and how creative they can be as musicians, I think is really interesting. So I listened to this EP and I'm thinking, I wonder what this would have sounded like if they'd really developed that and taken it off somewhere. There's an element of frustration. There's an element of like, this is cool. I wish it feels a bit rushed out. It feels a bit like, well, we've got to get something out,
Yeah, yeah.
before we shut the door. Um, so a strange feeling.
It's made it a very hard thing to review, hasn't it? Because
Hmm.
because like I said, it just doesn't make a lot of sense. But I mean, Sepultura's legacy, before we finish this, it is a funny one. Like you said earlier on, people pick their teams when it comes to Sepultura. It's either Max or it's the Derek Green era, and you know, Beneath the Remains, Arise, Chaos AD, Roots. I mean, that stuff is for us at our age. That's fucking seminal in it. It's so important.
Undoubtedly.
But they were always going to be up against it when they split with Max.
Hmm.
Because at the point when they split with Max, they were huge. They were fucking massive.
Oh man,
They were
yeah,
playing stadiums. They
yeah,
were massive, and it all just comes crashing down.
yeah.
So I think that their legacy is an odd one because like you said, it took them a while to get going with Derek Green. First couple of albums were a bit iffy, but there's been some great material.
On that point, I always like to make the point that when the split happened, the first thing that Max Cavalera came out was the first Soulfly album.
Yeah.
Like everyone kind of holds him up as like, oh yeah, he was the
Yeah.
talent, he was the one. And then
Yeah.
it's like, well, I'll tell you what, if you put against up against the first Soulfly album, I'll tell you which one I go back to and listen to more.
Yeah, I'll take Against all day long.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
Fucking hate Soulfly. Fucking
no,
dreadful band.
they're a band. They for me, I quite liked the first album, but I was, it was a funny time and new
Yeah.
metal was
Yeah.
whatever. Okay, but I don't go back to it. But actually, I do think Soulfly got a lot better the more I think, teased like they got that new metalness out. And
Yeah, that's probably fair. But I
anyway, I don't spend a lot of time listening to them, but I
no.
can acknowledge the last couple of albums have piqued my interest. But I'm only saying that just to make the point is I think both sides of that parting kind of had difficult beginnings.
Yeah.
Certainly
Yeah.
not true to say that Max Cavalera left Sepultura and then just kind of went, we see you guys later. I'm off. No, man.
Yeah.
He was singing songs with Fred Durst,
That's never a good thing. So,
unless
fucking.
it's karaoke night and you've had a few.
But
That's fine.
we've got Sepultura, we've got all those great albums, and you never take
Mm.
that away. All these bands from our youth and that are going to start coming to an end soon anyway. So it's just another one of those, I guess. And hopefully that when they play those final shows in Brazil, that it all goes off as a party and it's a celebration, and
Just
you know,
imagine.
just
Yeah.
and I don't think the Cavaleras need to be involved in it either because that's always going to be in the background. I
Yeah.
don't think they do. That's gone. It's
No,
done.
no, exactly.
You know?
That's it. I think that's it. I think that, the band split and they just evolved.
Yeah.
And I think that's fine. I yeah, but this particular release is odd because I think it just leaves things on a question mark.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like a full stop.
It's
It
like a
feels
cliffhanger ending, isn't it?
yeah, it is. That's exactly what it is. You've nailed it. It's a cliffhanger.
Yeah. But hey, look, check it out. It's out this Friday. It's definitely worth listening to. It's definitely worth checking out because it just showcases a whole different side of Sepultura and again, tell us what you think of it. Many people will probably like it. Probably will be quite Marmite, but
Mm.
we will see. So yeah, let us know in the comments down there. That's it. That's it. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. See you soon. Stay metal.